Hi, just following on for our series of videos today to look at sleep and how our sleep is affected when we are unwell following COVID-19. And sleep can be affected in two different ways. It can be oversleeping, it can be undersleeping, so long periods of insomnia or feeling so tired that we're sleeping through the day and through the night. So the first thing from a sleep point of view that we need to do is look at trying to get the sleep stabilised so that we're sleeping through the night with minimal sleep through the day. We want to try to avoid daytime sleeping, but it's not the worst thing in the world. The most important factor is trying to keep the sleep structured. So if there is a daytime sleep, make sure it occurs at the same time each day and keep that as a routine. Sleep-wise, the most important point of the day is the last quarter. So if we're able to go to sleep around about 10 o'clock, from about sort of 6, 7 at night, those last 3-4 hours of the day are really important in everything that we do during that time will have a huge impact on the quality of the sleep that we ultimately experience. So we want to make sure that everything that we do during that time is promoting good sleep and will allow our body to wind down in an appropriate way. The most important things are, think about what you eat and drink. So food-wise, give it at least 3 hours before you're expecting to fall asleep after you've eaten. And anything that you drink, make sure that you avoid caffeine as much as possible from about 4 to 5 p.m. during the day. Anything after that can have quite an impact on our quality of sleep. There are some people who can drink caffeine later into the night and it doesn't affect their sleep at all, because we all break down caffeine at different rates, so that's understandable. But for the majority of people, if sleep is an issue, we would normally say avoid your caffeine after sort of 4 or 5 p.m. The other huge impact on sleep these days is obviously our technology, so anything with a smart screen. We know that the blue light on smart screens affects sleep. We're aware in the media, we can reduce it to the sepia tone, we can put it on night mode. But the most important thing with smartphones is the scrolling mechanism. So if our screen is moving and we're using it, Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram, we're on Google or reading the news, if we're scrolling on the screen, the stimulation on the brain is huge. So we want to avoid looking at a screen that's moving for the last 3 hours of the day before we're expecting to fall asleep. So put your phones away, tablets, if it's a touchscreen iPad, don't look at it. TV is fine because obviously it's not a moving screen, so apart from the obvious of avoiding highly stimulating programs that are going to trigger our emotions and sort of increase our sensitivities to things, other than that, TV is not too much of an issue. But before you get into bed, remember to have a little bit of a wind down period. Think about our rests that we've talked about in previous videos, and always put your rests in throughout the evening as well as through the day. So if you're watching TV, which is perfectly normal evening activity for most people, every hour, hour and a half, just pause the TV or use the ad breaks as opportunities to have a little bit of a few minutes rest. Switch the sound off, look away from the screen, take those 3 or 4 minutes throughout the ad break to have a rest period, so that then by the time you've got into bed, you haven't just spent 3 or 4 solid hours looking at the screen of the TV and then you're expecting the brain to switch off. Use your rest throughout the evening so that when you get into bed to fall asleep, you've much more chance of being able to wind down. Okay? I think we always tend to think about, I use the analogy of, the little wind-up clockwork toys we used to give to children. You put them on the desk, wind them up and they'd walk along the desk. Picture yourself like that through the day. All the activity that you're doing is winding up. And obviously by the time you get to the end of the day, if you are so wound up, imagine that little clockwork toy when you've wound it that bit too far and it won't unwind but it won't work. That's what we're like when we hit that tired but wired point as we get into bed. We've done so much activity to keep pushing through, we get into bed and we just cannot wind down. So picture that little clockwork toy then with our rest periods during the day. So we wind ourselves up because we do a bit of activity, but because we have our rest, we wind back down. We do a little bit more, we wind up, but because we use our rest periods, we wind down. And if we do that throughout the day, by the time we get to bedtime, we're not so wound up that we can't then fall asleep, and the body is in a much more appropriate position to be able to wind down and allow sleep to happen in a more normal fashion. So to recap, everything we do through the day has an impact on the quality of our sleep at night. So bad nights follow bad days. If we get our days right, our sleep will improve. So think about what we eat, what we drink, especially within the last third of the day. Avoid the use of smart screens for 3 hours before we're expecting to fall asleep, and use our rest throughout the day to allow our body that recovery time to recharge, so that by the time we do get to bed, we are able to fall asleep in a more appropriate manner.